Hi, I'm going to share some thoughts on Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, which I saw last night. First, since I rarely do this straight to camera thing anymore, I just want to put in a plug for my novel, Cupid Takes a Holiday. There's a link below in the description to the Amazon page where you can buy it in whatever form you prefer. And I would be willing to bet that it is a more satisfying experience to read this book than to see The Secrets of Dumbledore, which is not to say I didn't like the movie. In fact, I will get into that right now. I did. And a big part of that was Jessica Williams as Lally Hicks. I feel like she stole the movie, and she stole it almost directly from Jacob, who is the character who usually steals the movies, Dan Fogler. And there were two big reasons for this. One, her character, in a way that nobody has in this franchise, harkened back to the joy in magic that that the characters in the original Harry Potter movies had, the characters in the original Harry Potter books had. She seemed to enjoy being a witch, as opposed to it just being a fact of her life. And perhaps part of this is she's a teacher, so of course she enjoys charm. She's a charms teacher. She enjoys what she does. She enjoys teaching it and sharing it with other people. She's paired up with Jacob a lot, and he's the second most exciting element of the movie, most fun element of the movie. So they go well together. When they were together, even if there was no one else there, it was usually a more engaging part of the movie. So there's that element, but there's also I recently rewatched the movie Passing, Rebecca Hall's adaptation of the Nella Larson novel, and in it, Tessa Thompson and Ruth Negga use the same accent, the same sort of accent that Jessica Williams employs in this movie. And the movies take place around the same time, but English accents were conditioned to, as American moviegoers, were conditioned to suppose English accents go anywhere, anytime. They just belong. They are the basic. They don't represent a specific point in time. They're just the base language that we are to expect. And magic could also be anywhere, anytime. So those are the dominant elements of a movie about British wizards. But Jessica Williams using that accent roots the movie in the time and place that it supposedly takes place in a way that no other element of the movie does. And so I really appreciated that because that made me feel like I am watching something. She at once, from the joy in magic and the accent, she at once reminded me I am watching a movie that takes place in the Harry Potter world, but also at a very specific time that Harry Potter does not take place. So she basically encompassed what the movie was by her performance. So that was really great. The movie itself, the reason it won me over is because it had a very easy job to win me over. Since I've been following this franchise, I care about the franchise, and I wanted it to succeed despite its mistakes. And the franchise as a whole, if it ended here, it would have fixed the things that it broke, and maybe then established that they weren't really broken. They were just the plot. I haven't watched all three in a row. I hope to do that at some point and see how cohesive they really are. But characters that were ruined in previous movies kind of redeemed in this movie. Ruined not in a way that, like, sometimes a character has to go through a journey and it has to make mistakes, but when it's so bizarre as what happened with my favorite character from the first movie in the second movie, it didn't make sense. It shouldn't have happened, and it was fixed. Certain canon story, overarching Harry Potter lore things that didn't make sense were fixed. Not in the most satisfying way, but in a more satisfying way than it looked like they were going. And at the same time, elements like Dumbledore's original motivation for staying away from Grindelwald for so long, not confronting him, not fighting him when everyone was saying, you're the only one who can do it, further erased his original motivation from the books, which is tragically beautiful, he further erased by this one. There's a very specific reason, but there are a lot of elements that lead to the reason why he doesn't confront Grindelwald according to the books. and then in the last movie they did the blood trough thing, whatever it is, and then in this movie they uh, complicated it even further than that, and maybe because they had poisoned it already, it's a mess. Um, and I really didn't like that. But again, there was more in the movie that I liked. Going back to the trailers, I did trailer reactions, and there was one thing. It's not a secret. Jacob is given a wand in this movie. And when I saw that, I thought, okay, I'm not going to assume what's going to happen with the wand. There might be a very good reason for him to have a wand, and the wand it doesn't necessarily mean that he's suddenly going to be able to do wizard magic. But my thing was, when you've got a group like the X-Men, like a superhero group, uh, they've all got their specialties, and that's what makes them work together well. There's always something that one of them can do that the others can't do. So my thing was, don't make Jacob a wizard. Have him be useful, and don't make him a wizard to make him useful. Have him be useful as a Muggle. Have him do something that only a Muggle, only Jacob would do. And one of the best parts of the movie for me was towards the end. He has a moment. Only Jacob of all these characters could have that moment. It is very useful, and it redeemed the trailers. I don't feel like the trailers necessarily sold this movie very well, but maybe they were trying to sell a different movie so that people would come see this movie. I don't know. So those are basic highlight plots, points, my feelings about the movie. As far as performances go, I feel like Jude Law is settling nicely into the role of Dumbledore, young Dumbledore, and this is where I'll mention, there are a bunch of reasons why they might not continue with the Fantastic Beasts series. Supposedly there are 2 more movies, but maybe they will end it at 3, again, for a number of reasons I don't want to talk about. But if they did end it, one thing they could do is they could use my idea, and they wouldn't have to call it my idea. They could just use it, and I'd be happy just that it happened. But it is my idea for a HBO Max series called Magical Creatures. No, Marvelous Creatures. Marvelous Creatures about, Hagrid has just been kicked out of school. He's had his wand destroyed. He is not going to Azkaban, but he doesn't have any real prospects for the rest of his life. And Dumbledore hires him. And we know that Hagrid ends up as the gamekeeper, groundskeeper at Hogwarts. But my idea is that for the summer before he starts as groundskeeper, Dumbledore hires him to be a research assistant because Hagrid is good with magical creatures, fantastic beasts, marvelous creatures. And Dumbledore needs that in a research assistant. And he knows that Hagrid's not going to be able to complete school, so he figures this is also a way to get him on a career path, so that he doesn't get recruited by Voldemort, who was, I believe, gathering followers at the time. So that is my pitch for that. But another way they could go that I wouldn't have thought of before watching this movie, scrap everything from the wizarding world, which is to say, not forget it exists, but you don't have to use it if you set a Lally Hicks-centered HBO Max series at Ilvermorny, the American Hogwarts, which I kind of got the impression maybe they were trying to open that door by having her be such a great central part of the movie. So those are 2 ways that they could go if they don't want to continue the series. So yes, so now I have explained why I liked it, my favorite parts, and that there were lapses in established lore. The movie ends with something that feels good. In the moment, it feels like nice, but wait a second, isn't that still illegal? I mean, they fixed some things, they didn't fix everything. And I was talking about performances. I really like Newt as a character, and I don't think that he as a character is served by these movies. He has some great interactions with magical creatures. Those sequences don't really fit in with the movie. But I love him as a character, and he could have cameos in Marvelous Creatures, the HBO Max series, because it's about that sort of thing. Hagrid would love Newt Scamander, even though he probably wouldn't have read the book. Let's see, Mads Mikkelsen as Grindelwald. I've said before, Mads Mikkelsen is probably, if they hadn't gone for a superstar like Johnny Depp, Mads Mikkelsen's more along the lines of the actors that they cast as the teachers in Harry Potter, kind of established, experienced, great actor, not a huge star. And my initial thought was he's probably, since he's from the area of the world where Grindelwald is from, he naturally has that accent when he speaks English. He's probably who they should have cast to begin with, but they didn't. They cast Johnny Depp. And I really liked Johnny Depp in the role, even if I didn't like the writing that he was given. And so throughout the movie, I was thinking, maybe it was a mistake for me to watch Casino Royale and Doctor Strange, two previous movies in which Mads Mikkelsen has played a villain before this one, because I kind of got the just feeling like, oh, he's doing his standard villain thing. We just consider him villainous because of the accent that he has when he speaks English or something like that. So I might have hurt him in my personal estimation doing that. But I also thought this is a better written, better constructed movie. And every time I was thinking, if Mads Mikkelsen had been in The Crimes of Grindelwald, it would have been a lesser movie. If Johnny Depp had been in this one, it would have been a much better movie. Because Johnny Depp was doing more interesting things as Grindelwald. And had a somewhat more interesting accent, because who knows what it was supposed to be. So that was something that, and that's where I found myself comparing the two movies most often. But there also was a sense that they took the criticism of the last movie that it was too chaotic really to heart, and they made a more orderly movie, but they also made a movie in which it was established by Dumbledore and Newt that chaos had to be their modus operandi because Grindelwald can see the future. So the only way to fight someone who can see the future is to be chaotic, be unpredictable. But then they had a less chaotic movie. If they had established that and then done The Crimes of Grindelwald, Crimes of Grindelwald would have made a little bit more sense. But since it was more chaotic and since it had that Johnny Depp's performance, it was more exciting even in its confusingness than this movie. This movie was kind of like a nice rebalancing the scales sort of movie, whereas that movie seemed like we're just gonna get you really eager to find out what happens because you're gonna need to, because otherwise you won't be able to sleep from not knowing. Which is kind of how I felt at the end of that movie. So, very mixed bag, these three movies. Maybe there will be two more. Maybe they will continue to get better. But maybe they will also continue to get less exciting, unpredictable, all of that sort of thing. I do not know. I do know that they've got potentially two very good HBO Max series on their hands that I have suggested here, and that they probably, again, already have in mind because they're probably always casting around for ways to expand this universe. Trying to think if there was any other, and there were plenty of thoughts that I had, but any others that I wanted to share, and I think I've pretty much shared everything that I wanted to. Any other performances I wanted to highlight, any other plot elements that I wanted to detail. They're just the usual, and again, this is a problem, the lines that we need to move the plot along, even if we're going to, in the same movie, like it's about an election. The movie is about an election of the leader of the Wizarding World, which is a new thing. There was no sense in the original Harry Potter movies that there was an overarching leader. We had the Minister of Magic. We could assume that there were leaders in the individual countries, but not a leader of the Wizarding World. And this was about an election for a leader in the Wizarding World. And at one point they're saying the people's voices must be heard, and then later in the movie they say, we're going to let this magical Bambi decide the election for us. And but they needed, for the plot, to emphasize the importance of letting the people's voices be heard early in the movie, and then later in the movie they needed for the plot for the magical Bambi to decide the election. So there you are. If you're into Harry Potter, if you've seen the other two Fantastic Beasts movies, this is probably something that you should see just for peace of mind. If not, then you're probably not even watching this video. I liked it. Like I said, I'm gonna see one day if these make a coherent trilogy, and then we'll see if they make the other two or if they go in some other direction. But I'm glad I saw it. So once again, this is better than The Secrets of Dumbledore and cheaper, and it benefits me. Even if you just read it on Kindle Unlimited rather than buying it. So I'm going to leave it at that and have a lovely movie.